Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm here to share my views and how to basically create API management using Integration Suite. So, just a little introduction, API management is basically as you can understand, API management basically means managing API. So, over here, in the case of API management, the main thing that we focus on is first creating an API, then publishing, that is basically hosting or deploying an API to the system, and then managing the connections that the APIs make. So we can understand this by a very simple example where like we create a program to add two numbers. So our first step in this is first we create a program to add the numbers. Then we deploy it to a platform where we can use that uh, program to basically our needs, and then we give it connections to say different systems, or say a company that basically needs a program that works on additions, or somewhere or a insurance firm like they need calculation softwares and stuff. So that way we manage our API connections. So I just basically gave you an example of a very specific software, but here we are dealing with APIs. So our APIs basically, uh, in our integration suite, we basically have a capability. Let me just show you. Sorry. Basically, when we add capabilities to our integration suite, we have a capability that is relevant to the API management. So when we need to, have API management in our integration suite, we need to enable this manage API capability. Once we enable this capability, once we enable this capability in our BTP cockpit under, so this is my, user, the user that I am. Under this, we get a list of different roles that are to be assigned based on what our needs are. So just to basically, for now that we are working on a basic API management system, for that, the main thing that we need is this API managed self-service administrator. This role, at the same time, this one, the auth group self-service admin. These two roles are a must for our API management to be enabled in our integration suite. Once we have enabled these, we have assigned these roles and given a added the capabilities. So under settings, at the moment I don't have that option, but once we have, enable the capability, we get an option just like integration, MIGs and AIGs. There's an option called APIs. When you click on those APIs, these few options that are relevant to our API management system are provided to us. So the options are test, configure, engage, analyze. Basically, these are few steps that help us to monitor our API. So we have three steps in API management. One is our API proxy. Then we have our API product and API policies. So these are three steps that we create, that we follow, through which we create an API and then manage it over the integration suite. So the first step, that is our API proxy. That API proxy is basically, for our case, nothing but our integration flow, where we are creating where we are creating a flow through which, when we deploy this flow, just once we deploy this flow, we generate an endpoint, and this endpoint of ours is going to help us to give a proxy link or a proxy set, a proxy URL. Using that, we will create a proxy server for our API. Let me just show you. We'll go to configure APIs. So, sorry. So first what we do is we create a provider for our proxy. So as you can see, you can go to create. And like I said, when we deploy, we can give some name to it. For example, I can say, and in connections, basically, we have different options like on-premise, open connector, cloud integration. We are basically going with internet. Here we can add our host number, our host. So basically our host in this case will be, second, our host will basically have this value, over here. Oh, sorry, I copied the wrong address. Basically, we are gonna give this the endpoint of our um, iFlow as our host value over here, and the port value will be 443 because our host, basically our link is in HTTPS, so the port will be 443. And over here, using authentication, using basic, we are going to provide the credentials or the client ID and client secret that we have created in a service key on our BTP. I can show you that as well. Yeah. So this is my credentials that I will be using. So I've already created this. I'll show you what I have added to my previous one. So this is my connections. As I said, the host will have the um, link for our integration suite, and the port number is 443. Then we have the user ID and the password for it. Once we have created this API provider, we are going to create an API proxy. So you can go over here to click on create. Now we have three options. We can basically use an API provider through which we can create a API. So here I have CI connection. I can use that. Here I will use the endpoint, the one I was mentioning over here, this, the HTTP APIM CI endpoint. This portion of our endpoint of the iFlow is going to be used over here in the URL. We can give a name, a title to our API. And over here, we'll usually go by this. We will basically be mentioning a base parameter that is usually at the end of your API. And our service type will be REST over here. I will, and you can create a URL as well. So in case you do not have any proxy, or you do not, you do not have any provider, you can basically use a URL which will help you to, access. So in case of success factors or any other third party app, you can use the URL of the website over here and you can access that. I'll show you what I have created for our CI connection. So I have given this. The base is V1 CI connection. The state of API is active. This totally depends on the requirement that do you need an endpoint or a target endpoint. Excuse me. So target endpoint will have the value of our URL that we entered and all of this, and you deploy it after creating. So the next step over here will be now you go to the Engage tab and you create a product. So over here you create a product, you provide the name, title, everything. You add an API. The API that we had created, for our case, it's CI connections that you will add and you publish this product. Once you've published the product, first I'll show you the product that I have created. I have created this. I have added our API. Now, once you have created a product, uh, you can basically go to these tools that integration suite has provided and open developer hub. So here I have created my ID on developer hub. If you are using it for the first time, you need to basically register yourself to a developer hub. Like now you can see that my product over here by the name CI connection product is created. Once, if I want to go and create a particular, now I need to go and create an application in developer hub. So to create that, I go to my workspace, I click on create, I add these details. Okay. So there is one thing that I can create a custom application where I can provide an email ID or an application key and secret. At the same time, I can create an application on behalf of someone. So I am the user, but I'm creating it for somebody, say name X. So I can add them in our user tab that is available over here. I can define the user and then use that user ID on whose behalf I would be creating it. But it's not necessary to basically do this. Then you add the product. Now I have a list of products. For our case, I added CI connection. Once you have added the product, you can click on create and your application is created. So for my case, I have created this iOS application. So you can see this, there is this application key, which you basically need to copy and keep it with you. So I'm going to do that. So copy this. Now, now what we'll do is we'll go to our final step, that is testing the API. So we'll go to test and APIs. Now, there are two ways, you can access this. You can directly click on the basically the APIs that are present for you. It will enter the endpoint for you, or you can go the route of just a second, let me show you the another tab. When you create, you get an API proxy URL. This is the URL that is present over here. So either you can copy that URL and paste it over here, or you can just click on it. Here we have the authentication again. It is our integration suite. So the service keys that we have created, that client ID and client secret will be our username and password over here. You've done this. Oh, I totally forgot one important step over here. When you basically create your proxy server, there is an option of API policies and you need to create a policy. So I'll show you what we have done. We click on policies over here. Okay. Then we go on proxy endpoints. Now in for us, we select pre-flow and we add verify API key. Once we do that, we are basically providing an API key request, and that we are passing the request to a header, and the value is API key. So now you'll understand this. We have a tab called header over here. Here we enter the value of API key, and the value that here we are going to enter or pass as API key will be the value that we had copied from the developer hub. That is our application key over here. So now we can send this request and you get a status. Okay. And I'll show you what was on successful passing. Our content modifier would pass this value. So that is the value that we get on testing this API.